Hannah Hamilton's Horrid Hullabaloo by Mary Annie Husler. This series is dedicated to all the wonderful Hewitt girls I was privileged to teach, with a special thanks to Savannah Rosen for her invaluable help. Chapter 7, The Contest. Who is responsible for this? Miss Stringfellow, the teacher at the door, bellowed, her dark, stormy eyes pointing straight at Beatrice. Beatrice could only shake her head, the color draining from her face, her glasses trembling, her black curls flopping, apparently at a loss for words. Well, the least you can do is gather your markers and the rest of you take out your sketchbooks. Art starts in 7 minutes. Maybe Hannah couldn't actually pick up the markers, but she could help by rolling them towards Beatrice. She could tell by the baffled look on Beatrice's face that Beatrice couldn't imagine why the markers were moving. A wave of pity washed over Hannah when she noticed that Beatrice was holding back tears. Hannah flew over to the trash can. Beatrice's drawing was still on top and still intact. She didn't know how she was going to do it, but Hannah was determined to see that the drawing was returned to Beatrice. Before you go, I have an announcement to make. Miss Stringfellow had a high, squeaky voice like a trapped mouse. As you no doubt know, the night of the lower school parent-teacher conference party, Mrs. Merriweather slipped on a lemon peel, fell, and broke her hip. Drunk, Summer whispered. The poor woman is still recuperating, and it will be at least a month before she's able to resume her duties as your art teacher. We're not going to have that horrible substitute again, Summer shouted out. The guy who picked his nose with the watercolor brushes. He chose not to return, Miss Stringfellow said in a clipped voice, after Casey dropped his phone in a bucket of orange paint. Ariella pushed me, Casey yelled, and then looked at Summer with intense delight, and they both started to giggle. Mrs. Danverclass will be teaching the art classes. A unified boo echoed throughout the room. She's not an art teacher. She's not even a real librarian. I heard that her degree is in air conditioning and heating. She can't climb the stairs because she has fat knees. Enough! But Scarlett is right. Mrs. Danverglass tore her meniscus, so it's difficult for her to climb up and down the stairs. Therefore, all of your art classes will be in the lower school library, which will give us a chance to do some much-needed renovation in the art room. That's the baby library. My parents are not paying $50,000 a year for me to take art instructions from a mechanic. Mrs. Applegate is waiting for you with Mrs. Danverglass in the library to tell you about a contest you're all going to enter. I think you'll be quite pleased when you hear what she has to say. I haven't been pleased since I left preschool, Summer muttered as she gathered her books. As soon as the girls swept out of the room, grumbling and stomping, Hannah soared to the trash can. Beatrice's drawing was gone. Mrs. Applegate, who wore a badge announcing that she was the headmistress, stood beside Mrs. Danverglass. With Mrs. Applegate's pale blonde hair fashioned in a helmet hairdo, dressed in beige slacks, a tan sweater, and brown lace-up shoes, slightly hunchback, Hannah couldn't help but think of a cashew. Girls, I have some very exciting news for you regarding a contest. What kind of a contest? Casey asked in a suspicious voice. Mrs. Applegate reached inside a camel tote bag and took out 3 dolls about 8 inches high. These lovely toys belong to the lower school dollhouse. As you can see, girls, they are badly dressed. Hannah didn't think that the pale pink sheaths were all that horrid. Your art project, until Mrs. Merriweather returns, the poor dear, is to design clothing for these dolls, first on paper and then by actually sewing them by hand. The school, of course, will supply all of the material. The winner of the contest will get a $500 credit at the new boutique Chic Choices, which just opened uptown. I'm going to pass out the rules to each of you now. The clamor of enthusiastic voices caused both Mrs. Applegate and Mrs. Danverglass to smile broadly. What if you don't want to do it? A chubby girl with freckles and a nose ring shouted out. Mrs. Applegate's smile vanished. I'm sorry you feel that way, Mackenzie. She frowned at Mackenzie's brown work boots. This is for a grade, of course, but if you'd rather, you can always help out in the kindergarten, teaching the little girls how to color in the lines. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a fundraising event to attend. Mrs. Damberglass will answer all your questions. As soon as she exited, the babbling began. My parents are not paying $50,000 a year so I can teach some bratty kids to color in the lines. I'm going to win that contest, Summer said confidently. Of course you'll win, Summer, Casey said. You always do. Hannah looked up at Beatrice, quivering with excitement, and she thought, not this time, Summer. Not this time. Hannah zoomed from desk to desk as she watched the girls sketching. The first task was to design a party dress. Hannah would have given anything to be the one sketching, although she knew that party clothes were the easiest to draw. It was the more mundane outfits, the pants, the shirts, the gym clothes, which were the real challenge. Hannah was just about to push a peppermint pink marker in Beatrice's direction when Boris, the janitor, entered, banishing a bucket of water as he moved towards the windows. You're not going to wash the windows now, Mrs. Damberglass shrieked. Not while I'm in the middle of teaching class. They're not doing nothing but coloring. Basil took out a long stem mop, dipped it into water, and almost knocked Mackenzie down when the handle caught in her hoop earrings. This is a project which Mrs. Applegate initiated, Mrs. Damberglass insisted. Yeah, she's the one. Basil stood on his tiptoes and began to rub the sponge up and down vigorously on the window pane, which caused a loud rattling noise. She told me to do the cleaning. I don't think she meant right now. While they squabbled, Hannah listened to Summer whine. He pretends to look for my mother's pink diamond, the one she lost at that dreadful cocktail party. It was worth $50,000, you know. He probably stole it. Was it insured? Casey asked. That's not the point. Suddenly a vision took hold of Hannah, causing her to fall backwards. It was of Marla, only this time her dark eyes and her very white skin were pleading. But they weren't focused on her. On the contrary, the vision was coming from Basil's brain.